So if you're looking for anything, head over to ericswanracing.com, shopesr.com. We also have our eBay pages and Amazon as well. Today is the ericswanracing.com podcast. You can watch it on YouTube, watch the video on Instagram, also Facebook. I put Instagram and Facebook videos in parts because it allows me up to 60 minutes, but if it's longer, you can watch the full one on YouTube in full video. And if not, you can just listen by audio on Spotify, Google iTunes, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts. It's on Anchor FM, and from Anchor FM, it distributes it to pretty much all the audio platforms that there are. Some of them I've never even heard of. Deezer, Stitcher, I think, a couple others. And so we're going to have a good talk. Quick shout out to some of the brands that I sell. Akasato, Akrapovic. We have Bonamici, Carazola, Coromoto brake lines, Discasiti Racing, also DNA air filters, Driven Racing, Easy Grip tank grips, IRC components, Kriega, M4 Performance Exhaust Systems, Moto D Racing, Motul, Mupo Steering Dampeners, OGO Power Sports, Spark Exhaust, Starlane Electronics, Revit, Roland Sands Design Gear, Rizoma, Rucka, Rocker, and WRP brake pads. And for car parts, we have Angry Acorn Designs, BC Racing, Carvin Exhaust, Fortune Auto Suspension, Noble Performance, Silver Suspension, and Swift Springs. We also have motocross parts like Azonic, Blur Optics, and Jim O'Neill. So if you're looking for anything, head over to ericswanracing.com, shopesr.com. We also have our eBay pages and Amazon as well. You can also send me an email to eric@ericswanracing.com. That's spelled ERICSWAHN Racing, RACING.com. Head over there. That's the hub for everything. And you can find all the links to social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I don't really use Twitter too often. I do have a LinkedIn, Strava. I do have a few blogs out, but I need to stay more active with that stuff. You can see my Wera profile and all the race history there on wera.com. And I'm just trying to put it out there. So thanks for following and watching. And hopefully you enjoy the podcast as well. And just trying to do at least one a week. This week I have 3. I was just in Miami doing the Formula One event, and just looking to learn more about the sport and be involved as much as I can. So really appreciate you guys following and watching, and hopefully you buy something. Like I said, I have about 35 brands available, and I'm just trying to expand and get all this stuff listed online so it's easily available. But you can always purchase something directly from me, even if it's not listed online. So any of those brands I have access to, and I'm an authorized dealer of, and I would love to connect you guys with the right items that you need. Just trying to help out.
There it is. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Jeez, that is dumb.
All right.
That's ridiculous. So
All right, so what's going on, guys? Who we got today? We got Michael Butler and Redline Moto.
Yeah.
So you put your face on it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good.
I look, you got that motorcycle. You're riding a bike over there.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And
Move me around too.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
That sounds like some fancy computer work there.
I just figured it out in the last 10 minutes.
Very nice.
Yes.
So this is the ericswanracing.com podcast, I believe number 97. We got Michael Butler and we got Redline Moto down there, I think. And
Yeah, Zach Butler.
Zach Butler. Very good. So it's going to be a two-part kind of podcast. We can kind of jump back and both back and forth and see how you guys are doing. So for Zach, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where'd you get started and what you're doing now?
We started at the same time about. I mean, he got me and my older brother a 50 when I was like 5, I think. Still got that 50. First thing I did was crash it into a deck. But since then, kept going with the dirt bikes. Around when I was 16, he did a track day on his Ducati, came back and offered me to get a bike and did the track days with him. Wound up finding a really beat up 848 that we got for a steal and fixed up. And then, yeah, started riding and then eventually started racing a couple years in and then just kept going until getting to Moto America. And now we're really trying to figure it out with these R1s and the team and the traveling and everything.
Yeah, it's like a full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, you leave on Wednesday and sometimes you don't get back till Monday, so it's quite the commitment.
For sure. And how about you, Michael? Tell me a brief history of your riding and what you're doing now.
Yeah, I've been riding a little bit longer, right? So I had a mini bike when I was in 3rd grade, which was, I think that was like 1979.
Okay, for a couple years now.
It's been a few years. So, and then I had started having a collection of bikes, and then they started leaking oil because we never used them, right? So if you don't use a mechanical device, it just leaks. And we started selling them off. And then actually a surgeon friend of mine had given me a ticket to do a track day with Sport Bike Track Time. And those guys were great. So, you know, because these road bikes are ridiculous, right? I mean, you can buy something right off the showroom floor that goes 180 miles an hour. It's nuts. So, you know, everywhere you ride it, you're going to either die or get a ticket or both. So I started selling them off, and then that surgeon had given me a spot there, and that's where, you know, it's just fun. Everything you do is fun. And so I think I went one track day, and then I'd asked Zach to go do it. And then, yeah, we found an 848 and built it, and then got off the Ducatis, and then went to Yamaha. He had an R6 before this. We still have an R6 in the stable, but then we went to the R1s, which is fun.
Sounds like you know, that's the bike to be on nowadays.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's great handling. It doesn't have as much power as the other bikes. I mean, Zach can talk about it a little bit as well. But it looks like the paddock, at least for super stock, has been getting filled out with
BMWs.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a new platform, phenomenal electronics. It's a great bike, and you know, Germans know how to engineer stuff. So there's nothing they've released that isn't great. So
yeah, and you know, they're always releasing new technology. It seems like some of the brands are more stagnant than others, but I was just doing this ride with a buddy of mine, and he's got one of those new BMW 1000s, and it's more of a touring bike than a race bike, but it has a feature. It's like a hill brake, where if you're on a hill, you can just already stopped, click the front brake a little bit more, let go of the brake, and it does it for you. I'm like, this is pretty cool.
The ABS just holds it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then once you get back on the throttle, it'll release the brake, and you don't have to touch the brake anymore.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's ridiculous. Porsche has that, right?
Yeah.
Porsche has that. So that's what's amazing. You just get it. You get to the point where, you know, riding the electronics they're so helpful. I mean, they really do save you. Incredible.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of the some of the human element out of it, but in that instance, it doesn't make you a better rider for just holding on to the brake, right?
Yeah.
Well, it may, because your hand's not tired.
Yeah, or it might make you more atrophied because you're not using the brake enough.
That's right. See, there's a yin and yang to everything, right?
So you got both sides of it, but yeah, for sure, the technology that's coming out seems to be a benefit for both the track riders and the regular street guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the wet, ABS in the wet, I could see that being really helpful on street tires.
Yeah, because you never know if there's rabbits ahead of you jumping out, or gravel, or that minivan that you're not expecting.
Yeah, like I've gotten into a habit of watching car crash videos on YouTube, like compilations.
Yeah,
and every now and then you'll see a bike, and the dude just stomps on that rear brake, and it just slides right in.
Yeah,
it's like you maybe had ABS.
Had to lay her down.
Yeah. you can see he wasn't even bothering with the front, just all rear, skidding around.
Yep. And so one of the things I'm doing lately is I'm in the midst of becoming a motorcycle rider coach for street riders, for people getting their license, people who maybe even never touched a motorcycle before. So you have to teach these people different concepts than you teach a racer. You can't teach them trail braking their first day. You have to teach them, the basics of this is the throttle, this is the gas, this is the brake, this is the clutch, all that stuff, instead of the higher level. This is how you lean off a bike techniques.
Yeah, you gotta make sure they can actually go forward and stop first.
And so I
That's
was a
stalling
little,
at every light.
when I was first learning and progressing, I was a little thrown off because what they taught me at first is not what they teach you at the next level. And so I was like, well, he lied to me. Well, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, not really. It's just the progression you have to go to learn those deeper concepts."
Yeah, I think we experienced that with the track day stuff. You learn different stuff as you keep going, and a lot of it starts to become contradictory. Like you eventually have to pick a school of thought when you're starting to race, is like how you want to ride the bike. And because I mean, we have two pretty different riding styles. He's more upright, I'm more like push myself as low on the bike as I can.
And that seems to be also the just generational differences in riders, right? The different riders from decades ago are always more center and less upper body movement way off the bike. And the newer riders are trying to get their head to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to work. Both ways seem to work fine on these bikes, at least. I don't know. Because I'll see like Corey Alexander runs a more upright body position, but I mean the dude's like 6'8". He's super tall. So it's like, where is he gonna go? Like when he was on that Cowie, have you ever been on a ZX10? They are really tight packages to be sitting on. Like it feels like a 600.
Yeah.
So I don't know where he's putting all those legs. Like
This probably feels really cramped. And then if you put up the rear sets all the way down, you're going to be scraping your foot pegs.
oh yeah, like Virginia has tall curbs. The Ridge, you're leaned over so long. Like I scraped off my my shift lever. Like the little rubber cap scraped off at the Ridge. Like that track is deceptive with how much you have to turn, like how much lean you need.
Yeah, and I even saw, I think some of the baggers were scraping their bags and the curbings at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, one of them popped open. I think was at Atlanta or Daytona.
One of them, it was,
Yeah.
we always joke, what are they carrying in those saddlebags? Is it like hot dogs for later? They got a case of beer or what?
Probably beer.
Just a couple of just plain beer just floating around in there, no cans. They just pour it in. Got a hose running up, like the Camelback hose right into the helmet.
Yeah. So talking about riding styles, I got a conspiracy for you. I bet you the top MotoGP guys are all dragging their boots, and a conspiracy with the boot manufacturers to sell more boots.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case, or is it like a Fred Flintstone braking technique?
So I've tried it. I've done it before, the foot drag. I see your point with the boot thing, but I raise you the prospect that they typically will replace the sole.
Yeah.
You can get a replacement sole for like $40.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No. But I mean, it does slow you down maybe. Like it does help with leverage. Yeah, the kicking your leg out. It does feel like you slow down faster. I don't know if it's a head thing or a real thing, but it's also at the same time making the bike bigger.
Yeah,
Like
getting a wider aerodynamic profile maybe.
Yeah, and you're a little harder to pass. I mean, you got an extra foot sticking out going into some of those corners. So it's like maybe it's just a little blocking technique.
Yeah, I've definitely done that up the inside of me to try to stop some guys, and it feels like it helps. But at the same time, it's like that's still free game. They might just take your leg out.
Just take your leg. Well, it's also, it can be embarrassing if you're not going fast enough and you do it and some guy passes you. You feel like an asshole. You're like, I'm just sticking my leg out like I'm gonna break a track record, and this guy just walked by me.
It's always humbling when somebody passes you around the outside doing 15 miles an hour faster. Like, oh, I guess I should be going a little faster in this corner.
Yeah, or when you're braking and they're still on the throttle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little humbling, a little spooky.
Well, it's always you, even though you're expert or professional level riders, it's always somebody's going to be faster than you no matter where you go. It might be their home track. It might be you only have a couple laps of this new track, or maybe you're just feeling off that day. You never know what the situation is.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're never. It's hard to be the fastest guy everywhere. That's usually not the case, no matter who you are.
So some days you might be settling for mid pack or worse, but you can't be pushing at 100% if you're not feeling it, because that's typically when you're making those mistakes. You got to learn to know when that's maybe enough for today, and I'm going to kind of settle down in this position.
Yeah.
Take some damage limitations. You never want to settle, but you want to go home with a shiny bike.
Yeah, you also don't want to. You want to finish the race.
Right.
Yeah.
To
You
finish
want-
first, you must finish. First finish.
First, you have to
Yeah.
finish. Yeah.
Yeah. No one,
You watch
no
the
one's ever won.
Schumacher.
Yeah. No one's ever won by not finishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something exciting I just did is, you probably realize I'm a track marshal, a race official of sorts at some of these rounds. And so I was at the Daytona, the first 3 rounds in the series for Moto America. And then I also just did the Formula One at Miami.
Oh, really?
Down there. So that was my
Sick.
first Formula One event. And I'm honored to be chosen to be picked for those positions, because the Formula One, they have like 5,000 people who apply and maybe 400 or 500 get chosen. So
That's cool.
it's really cool to help out and be a part of it and see all the behind the scenes aspects of it.
Yeah.
And Formula One coming to town is like a traveling circus times 10. It's
Mhm.
It's huge. The money difference between like even MotoGP to Moto America, the money difference is clear, because like it's insane the amount of stuff going on and the amount of security
Yeah,
you have to
it's,
get through. It's cool. How
security
was the
clearances and all
porpoising?
kinds of gates.
Were those cars bumpy as they look on TV?
The track wasn't so bumpy. The way that they can steer and make changes in direction so quickly and stop and go is just they don't act like normal vehicles. They are just like rocket ships on the ground. And just seeing them, the difference in sound between the W series, the all women's stock. I don't know if you call it a stock series, a spec series.
yeah, there's spec,
cars. They are just so much faster. It's wild. But actually, there's 3 classes that they ran in Miami. They did not have the Formula 3 or Formula 2. They don't usually bring those to the States. It's kind of the European series for those. But they had the Porsche Cup, and they had about 32 cars at least start the event. I didn't finish with 32 cars. But those were by far the loudest vehicles on track, even louder than the Formula One. I was surprised by that. And
Well, the Porsche Cup is naturally aspirated flat 6s, right?
right,
That's
and
probably
maybe
why no turbo to quiet it down.
yeah, and that aspect, maybe with the just how low to the ground those cars are and the reverberating off the ground effect, I think.
And the walls, yeah.
The walls just, and I'm at turn 9.5. If you know the Miami track, you can look that up. I was driver's right. I want to always say rider's right because I'm used to seeing bikes, but driver's right. And it's kind of like a flat out kink straightaway. So they're just 100% throttle. And typically we didn't see much action from our corner as far as crashes go, because if you're crashing there, it's going to be a really nasty crash, being a flat out section there. So it was just cool to watch everything. I was pretty much a spectator for the whole event because there are no crashes, no mechanicals, but we got a JCB ready. We have to be, full gear. We have 3 pairs of gloves, which I didn't realize they have. Like, why do we have a pair of gloves for our gloves for our gloves? It's because there's a comfort glove underneath that's like cotton, and then you have a electrical ERS glove that's rubber, and then you have a leather glove on top of that to protect the DRS gloves or the ERS electrical gloves, because cars are electrically, they're hybrid, they're charged, and so if they have a major impact, it could make the car dangerous to touch. Which is different than any other car that I've ever worked with, whether it's Indy cars or these W Series or the Porsche Cup. So you have to be standing at attention with your full, orange bibs on. The orange looks like it's prison attire, and then you have your tabard on top of it, which is right here actually, the Formula One.
They'll let you keep it.
Yeah, you get to keep the tabard, but not the orange jumpsuit. And you got to give your gloves back, and then they give you a helmet too. That's the first time I've ever had to wear a helmet as a corner worker, but I kind of like that because shit goes wrong really fast, and you only are a couple feet away from this catch fence, and that's it.
Yeah.
So if something goes airborne, you better drop to the ground, I guess.
Was there a corner worker party?
There's always parties for corner workers. There's yeah, there's a good amount of stuff going on. There's, it's they bust us all in like 12 or 13 Greyhound buses from 4 different hotels, maybe 5 hotels, to this compound center, like a community center that they were using for us. They have breakfast there, and then we grab our lunches. We usually have a morning meeting, and then we get shuttled into the facility and dropped off at our corners on the bus on the main racetrack. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good idea with all the coolant running on the track from the buses overheating. But
And brand new asphalt.
Yeah, it seems to just wash right off, no problem. But I thought that'd be an issue.
Well, how did the bus driver take it? Did he hit the corners, or
Was he hauling it?
There was one time we had to go around again, and we're like, all right, last lap is 38 minutes. Make this one a little faster, please.
Was it that long?
It seemed like that because
Wow.
we got a convoy of all these buses, and with a sign that says, this is for this hotel, this is for that hotel, and nobody knows what bus to get on, and it's kind of a shit show, and it feels like it takes forever. It took probably over 2 hours for us to get back from our station at the end of the race to the compound, and then from the compound we had some food, and then we had to go back to our hotel from there. So back to the hotel was like hours.
Wow.
I mean, it's a 4:30 in the morning till question mark at the end of the night. You have no idea when you're going to get home, and just be prepared to be patient, because it's a whole lot of hurry up and wait.
Oh yeah.
And it's the inaugural event. I mean, Formula One's been doing this for 72 years, but anytime you go to a brand new facility with a brand new track surface, there's going to be dozens of problems you're not ready for. Whether it's communication, can we even communicate with this large structure in between us?
Yeah, because they had the football stadium in the middle of the track, right?
Yeah, there's a giant football stadium blocking everything. So like, I don't know how they figured that out. Just all the logistics. I'm thinking, how many semi trucks do you think it would take to cart all this stuff away? They must have, 12, 15 miles of fencing. All these structures are they have like 3-story tents that are pop-up tents. You can take them down at the end of the weekend, but they're 3 stories tall.
Yeah, it's basically a building.
Yeah, it's a major structure that's bigger than my house, and they're just going to take it with them at the end of the day.
There's offices in there and everything. Yeah.
So it's like, how do you even design or facilitate all this stuff? It's just the top level of engineering, of building structures, of bridges, of concrete laying for race surfaces, of marketing. Like every single thing they do is the top pinnacle of logistics of all these different industries. Like, putting that all together is pretty wild to see.
Don't they fly that stuff? Don't they fly that stuff? I mean,
they must put it in containers and just ship it all over the place. But I heard from teams before that it's actually cheaper, like the race teams themselves. It's cheaper, they found, to purchase an entire new set of tools for each country, or each continent rather, than it is to have to ship it across the seas. I thought that was pretty wild. So they're storing all this stuff somewhere. I don't know where they're putting it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a different cost level.
Yeah, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in profit, even after all this stuff is paid for.
Yeah, F1 teams are like a pro sports, pro football. I guess the guy that put Miami on owns the Dolphins, and he made more in that one weekend with F1 than he has through his whole season of the Dolphins. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. They're going to be in Vegas. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be in Vegas working that event, but I think I'll apply. And if you've already done one Formula One event, it what makes you want to do another one and another one. And you see these people from all over the world. It's a global event.
Absolutely.
In my corner alone, turn 9.5, if you call that a turn. It was a guy from Azerbaijan and a guy from Austria and a couple of Americans. From Texas, I'm from Michigan, and we all ended up in Florida. It's like
Yeah.
it's really cool to see that, and you see all the people. They were hanging their sign or their flags on the fencing on the outside, and it's cool to see all around the track. There's Brazil and a bunch from Colombia. I think one from Venezuela. Saudi Arabia right next to me, all over the place. There's probably dozens of countries, at least from the workers alone, not even from the spectators.
Wow.
It's crazy. The workers, fucking Saudi Arabia going to Miami. That's
Yeah,
another level of commitment.
and the guy in my corner, he works the Baku event. He's like, you should come to Baku. We have place to stay. We have pretty girls. We have arcade. We have play pool, whatever. Video games. We have it all. Come on, let's come to Baku and do the race. He's like, I'm the head lead guy there. Like, I can get you in.
Looks like you're going to Baku.
I would love to. I've never been. They have the red, the green, and the blue with the crescent moon and the 8-point star in the middle. I love studying flags, so it's cool to see, like, oh, I know that flag.
Mm-hmm. There you go. That looks like a good plan.
So
Yeah, why not?
maybe. I mean, they do it once a year, so it'd be cool to travel around to all these places. And me being to Michigan, there was a person I was sitting next to on the bus. She was from Nova Scotia, so she came farther than me in this country from Canada. And there's a lot of people at this event who did the Montreal Grand Prix. So they're trying to convince me to go to Montreal, and that's not too far from me, really. That's just across the border, a couple hours.
Well, if they ever run it again.
You think they won't do that one?
No, I mean, just because of the COVID up in Canada, they haven't ran it since 2019.
Oh, yeah. So I'm not sure if it's back on the calendar this year, but I think they're trying to jump up from 20 some events to do 25 in the next couple of years.
So they have the constructors have a contract with the FIA that they can't do more than 23 in a season. Because I mean, imagine it. You're starting in like April going till December, and they have triple header weekends where it's like back to back to back, and it's different countries. Like,
yeah. And
you
then
can't be doing that to people.
And then there's testing and media obligations and different things for the drivers that they have to do. And they have families and friends, and that's like half the year already.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the amount of shit that happens.
But I mean, they're fairly well compensated, I think, for their travels.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still a
What
way
a
of
dream
life.
to be able to do that kind of series.
It's a way of life. It's not a job or a career. It's a way of life.
Yeah.
And
they all live in Monaco.
wherever you want.
Yeah.
Oh, they all live in Monaco because of taxes.
Okay. No income taxes.
Very Formula One dense in Monaco. It's pretty funny.
I'm thinking about how can I be a part of this as well. I mean, I'd love to be driving the car or riding the bike and be traveling like this. However, right now I've kind of found this way to be a corner worker and travel and do it that way. And most of the time getting paid at the racetrack for doing it. Now the position I did was unpaid, which is an intervention marshal. So I'd be the guy running out and helping out the car, or when the JCB operator with the crane needs to pick up a car, I would be stabilizing the car and holding the car and, that kind of thing. Those positions are unpaid for Formula One. However, there are positions that are paid. Like JCB operators do get paid a daily pay. I'm sure many other positions get paid.
Probably flaggers.
Flaggers do not get paid. That's a volunteer only position. So there's a lot of grid marshals do not get paid as an unpaid position, and many others are completely volunteer only. But it's such an honor to be involved in it and be a part of it. And also it would cost me $900 for a 3-day weekend pass for general admission just to get in the event.
Yeah.
So, tickets were going up to $28,000 for a 3-day pass. On the standard ticket Ticketmaster or Ticket Center website, not even on the marketplace. So it was a completely sold out event with, I think the numbers were 240,000 attendees for the weekend total.
That's
So
crazy.
it's pretty cool stuff. But I talked to one guy, they do moto taxi. So, the guys who have crashed, who need to get back to the pit lane. There's Moto Guzzi's or whatever they are, BMW sometimes. I think they're MV Augustas maybe. And they have people riding around the whole track the whole time, inside and outside of the barricades to make sure that these drivers get back as soon as possible. So I'm like, man, how do I get to ride a motorcycle around a Formula One track all day and meet the riders possibly and see all the pit lane and everything on a motorcycle? And like and travel the world. These guys travel the entire series with them. And they're like on some select imaginary list that is like, these are the guys who do the moto taxi. I'm like, well, how do I get on that list?
Got to make sure you won't crash a Formula One driver.
Exactly. So, I'm becoming a motorcycle coach and I've been riding and racing for 17 years. So it's like, man, I could totally get that gig, I think. So I gave one of the guys my card. I think his name is Carl. And I'm going to try to send everybody an email that I have contacts for to see if I can get some sort of Formula One paid position to travel the world. That sounds like a damn dream job.
You could just give him the bike, like Australia with Seb, but just hand him the bike, let him ride around.
So there's, I don't even know all the positions that are available. There's boundary riders, and then there's moto taxi riders. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the moto taxi. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and actually, since it's a street circuit that's not dedicated to this yet, there's all kinds of curbings in the way and water pipes you got to watch out for. And I walked the entire outline of the track and some of the on track before they had to kick me off because they were doing pace car and hot laps. So I was walking the main track. I had to go outside, and then I decided I'm just gonna follow this circuit around the outside of the perimeter, inside the barrier where the marshals are supposed to be. And there's a lot of portion where you can only fit with just going sideways. You can't even fit your whole body through that portion because there's either a bridge and there's like off foot that you can crawl through, or different electrical boxes and panels, or there's a garden there with trees that you can barely just squeeze through. So it's like you can't fit a motorcycle even through half of these parts. So you have to like turn around and find another entryway to get inside the barrier. Like it's not a dedicated racetrack that has good exit ways at all.
Yeah, it's in a parking lot.
Yeah, it's a parking lot track. So
with an exit ramp, with a highway exit ramp attached to it.
Isn't that wild? It's a first for me. It's my second street circuit. The first one I did was St. Petersburg for IndyCar. So this was cool to see the Formula One and how they did it.
Yeah, probably a bit higher production value with some of that stuff than IndyCar, but I mean, still.
Oh yeah, for sure. They both had good features. A lot of vendors and a lot of food trucks came out to the IndyCar one. That was cool to see. A lot of beer vendors and all kinds of barbecue and every kind of T-shirt you could ever imagine was for sale.
Yeah, the F1 merch is crazy expensive.
And they're just printing money with those T-shirts and hats. I think $100 for a hat, $120 for a T-shirt for the collar.
It's a hat.
We're selling team hats, but we can't get $100 yet for them.
You should have an option like $50 hat with a $50 tip optional donation.
Optional donation, tax free.
Like a barista or something, right?
Yeah, I think actually if you go to shopesr.com, my website for selling stuff, you can actually put a tip on your order. I don't think anybody's done that yet, but I feel like I should put it out there as an option.
One day.
Yeah.
Because people get tips all the time for like opening a door. Here's $10. Like we did nothing for you, right?
That's right.
Well, what about like they got those iPads now at restaurants to pay for stuff, and it has a tip option. It's like I've never before these iPads, I never tipped to pick food up.
Yeah.
But now it's got this tip button glaring me in the face.
Or like it's takeout food. You're not
Yeah.
getting any service there.
Yeah,
You want
I
a tip. But you
I
know, I
drove
get
here.
it. If you did a great job, I will give you a tip. If it's like average and I didn't think anything special of it, probably not. But if you went out of your way and made me feel a little special, you probably get $1 or something.
If it was ready the moment I walked in,
Yeah.
I'll hit that tip button.
Yeah. Like sometimes, like I've been flying a lot, and I got you have to put your car in some expensive parking lot for a couple of days, and when I get back, usually you have to wait 20 minutes for your shuttle. Well, when I came back just Monday from Miami, the quick park shuttle was already there. I was like, this is great. Then I got on it with it was one person, just me, and he took off right away. I was like, that's great. This is like a limo service. So I gave him a tip because it was super quick and he didn't have to wait for anything. It was just I got on 30 seconds or gone. I was like, wow, I thought he was gonna have to wait for like a half hour for more people or something.
Thank the bus driver.
Yeah, so that was nice. You don't get that all the time.
No.
Oh, so
Especially-
here's something crazy I saw at the airport the other day. It was probably the drunkest person I've ever seen who was still standing up. And he was at the airport trying to catch a flight. And I was
Was
just
he a pilot?
I was going into the bathroom and he was coming out. And before that, like 3 or 4 people were like laughing, like hysterically coming out. I was like, what is happening there? Is someone blowing up the toilet or something, making sounds? I was trying to decipher what was happening. And then he comes stumbling out. I'm like, oh, well, I see why. He was like could barely stand up, stumbling back and forth violently. I didn't want to get involved with it. But I just like, hey man, you okay? It's like very clearly, yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. How are you? Like that was really strange. Like I didn't know if he was mentally retarded or what was going on with him, you know. And I just see everybody's like starts to watch this guy walk down the hallway, and you see security with a radio just very calmly, like 200 feet behind him. Yep, he's in blue jeans and this shirt and this backpack with this. And he finally somehow makes it up the escalator, which we're all like, oh no, he's gonna crash, he's gonna fall. He makes it up the escalator and out of our sight. And I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but I'm sure he got arrested. There's
He may
no,
have made it. He might
there's
have
no
made it.
way anybody would have let him on a plane.
Why not?
Oh man, I
Probably
didn't
just
know-
fall asleep.
I didn't know if he was gonna get violent or what, but man, it was a sight to see.
Yeah, I've seen some remarkably drunk individuals that are still operating, sometimes even operating things that can move under their own power, like those bird scooters.
That's
Like,
terrifying.
well, that's usually just self-inflicted harm when you're hammered and get on a bird scooter.
For sure. So
Curbs are rough.
they come out of nowhere.
Yeah, that tree, man, I swear.
It just jumped out. So you guys looking forward to any rounds this season for riding? What's on the deck for the season? You're doing the full calendar Moto America or wild cards, or what's the plan?
We're doing the full deal. We got VIR in like a week. Historically, not my best track. That's a tricky one. It's super technical, and you kind of got to body your way through a lot of that track. I'm looking forward to Laguna again, though. That's a fun one. They're supposed to be repaving it for next year, which will be sweet because there's some big bumps in that thing. There is some rough spots around that track, like turn 1 and 2, kind of not great. After the what's it called? After the corkscrew, bumpy as hell.
Are they doing the
that-
full track resurface or just portions?
They're doing the whole thing.
I heard they just got some big investment, $10 million or something for that.
Yeah, for a full refresh, which it needs.
That's exciting. They're probably going to put up another bridge or two, or maybe a paddock stand or something.
That paddock is huge. The paddock they have now is massive. It's probably one of the best tracks for spectators because I think you can get just about everywhere on that track.
Yeah, and you can see quite a bit because the elevation change. You can be up on the hill and see a lot of the track, I think. I haven't been to that one. That's one I haven't been to yet. But coming from a street circuit where I could see 4 seconds of the Formula One cars, yeah, it's nice when you're at a track where you can see maybe 20, 30 seconds at least.
Yeah, the elevation definitely adds. And it's in a desert, basically. So there's not much foliage in the way. Like, Like at Road America, you're in the woods.
Right.
Like it's the same thing. You got like a good few seconds of watching and then they're gone again.
It's just the nature of the track. And yeah, Road America, if you're watching the junior class, you're like, all right, it's going to be 3 minutes before they go by again.
Yeah, sit
Just
back.
wait for a while, until it gets into the race, and then they get spread out a little bit more, and then a little bit closer between first and last place. But yeah, sometimes it's like if you're at Blackhawk Farms in Illinois, it's maybe
It's a minute.
minute 10, a minute 20 if you're slow. So it's way quicker go by you than like a Road America. Just dramatic, and they're pretty close together too, as far as distance apart from each other.
Blackhawk is super short track.
One of the shortest tracks that I know of. It used to be Pittsburgh International Race Complex, Beaver Run, before they repaved it. They just had the North Course. There was no South Course, and that was probably about the same lap time.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is super fun in its current state. The track's super well surfaced and
tons of elevation. That new section seems people seem to love that new section.
What's the new section? I never rode the old one.
It's the south. So the old one used to be you take turn 1 left and then you take an immediate right.
Oh yeah.
And then it just loops on back onto itself. The whole portion left after that is the new section.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah, that new section is pretty fun.
Yeah, they got the wheelie hill going down that coming right after the turn 1.
That is a
pretty
really
unique downhill first turn section there. You don't usually have a blind downhill into turn 1 section. That catches out a lot of people.
Yeah, it's deceptive. Because you think you have to slow down more than you do, because that corner looks way tighter than it is as you're approaching it. And once you're in it, you realize it's huge.
Yeah.
Because you have that wall to your left that kind of blocks your vision. And then the hill that's blind until you're on top of it.
Yeah, I think I worked turn 5 last year for Moto America, and one of the guys, Yamaha, I think it was. I'm losing track of who it was. But he crashed his bike. He high-sided in my corner in I think a superbike race, and immediately engulfed in flames. And I was the first
stock. I think that was the stock 1000 race with the Suzuki.
Okay, yeah.
It was the uphill, right?
Wyatt Ferris, yeah, that's who it was. And immediately engulfed in flames. I was a first responder on the scene with the fire extinguisher, and he's doing this. He's giving give me the bottle gesture. So I'm like, here's the bottle. And then what do? I'm just standing around for moral support.
Yeah, just ready to go.
And then my teammate behind me came with another bottle. Corner worker, and he's out there. They're both using the bottles. I'm like, all right, I'm just watching because we're out of fire extinguishers now, and they empty both bottles, and the fire's still raging. And it's like, well, okay. There's a guy in the corner before us who broke his finger, and we were getting stepped on. We couldn't get our radio communication through to race control because before us was talking about the guy's broken finger or something. I'm like, that's nice, but we have a fire. We need to shut the race down. And
that red flag was super slow. I remember seeing that crash, and a bunch of us that I was around, we all stuck our arms out because we knew it was going to be red flag, but it was not until several corners later that it finally came out.
Yeah, because I was freaking out. I was like, man, they're going to get the smoke signal before they get our audio message across. Because I tried to make the call like 4 or 5 times, and he's still talking about his stupid finger over here. So you have to make your calls really short and concise, and I'm not even sure who that marshal was. I'm not trying to be mean to him, but you just never know what's going on at the other side of the track behind your vision. You just don't know.
With your finger, we get it, but
so it's like
that
and then
bike
they
burned
had to
to
have 2
nothing.
fire trucks come out to put it out, and it was melted to the racetrack. My shoe got melted actually from that.
Really? Wow.
Dude, that bike was literally gone. There was
that was the start of the race.
It was pretty early on,
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we had full tank of fuel, and it's bad.
Yeah, and some of the manufacturers are making these sliders for your tank now to help stop that. They put a little piece of carbon on the end of it.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps. I'm not sure if it's 100% fixture, but it'll do something.
We just use those frame sliders, and it actually keeps the tank pretty up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
the Woodcraft ones have a triangular shape, so they won't pop the bike over a curb, so it won't flip
Yeah.
So if it goes down, they're low enough that it'll slide on it without it grabbing.
That's the
So
worst.
yeah,
It's
right.
like you crash, it's a low side, you're sliding, you're fine, then you hit the grass and everything turns into a yard sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are bad days. That's a bad day. Yeah, but those are great. Those little tiny things like that help out quite a bit. And if you're going to get a tank, it's because it got popped some other way. Usually it's almost near the cap. That's
Yeah.
all the scarring, when people dent their tank, it's usually up by where your knees hit.
Usually up pretty high, yeah.
It's usually pretty violent.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not a friendly, right? It's not usually a friendly thing.
It's usually a pretty violent interaction that breaks a tank open.
Yeah, those are bad days.
So normally, most racers have had some pretty crazy, gnarly crashes to talk about. Do you guys have any crashes to talk about? Any broken parts or impressive eyes?
He sure does.
I think my most impressive crash was I broke a fork in half, and I took the rear tire off the rim. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, breaking a fork in half. What did it hit? Like a wall? Like just a concrete wall?
I hit a guardrail about a 45-degree angle after a high side. And 7 bones, concussion, collapsed lung, the whole 9 yards. Hospital for 2 weeks, but I'm fully healed. I had no surgeries, no cast, and I did a tough mudder. No, I did a tough mudder like less than 3 months after the crash. So, which is basically a half marathon with military style obstacles. So it's possible to recover pretty quick, but my bike was pretty expensive crash, I'd say. That was like the first or second weekend I had on my new bike. And actually in that race, I got down to the same exact lap time within 100th of a second of all the other time on my Kawasaki. So that bike was definitely a lot faster than my other bike.
What bike was it?
I moved from a Kawasaki 636 to a Triumph Daytona 675R.
Those Triumphs are fast.
And I liked the Triumph. It was just a combination, I think, of just got my pro license, so I had something to prove. I was just on a brand new bike that I wasn't used to, that had a different torque band, different power band. It had different tire compound that was released that weekend from Michelin. They went from the Cup ABC to the Cup that was just one compound now. And so just trying to go faster and making passes, and sometimes you make a mistake, and sometimes the mistake is a big field that you end up into, and unfortunately this was the one time I made a mistake and there was a guardrail with no air fence there.
And there was a wall.
So I'm thankful to be alive after that one. I can't wait to get back into road racing. It's just the hardest part about racing for me is funding it.
Like most people. It's not a cheap sport.
So I digress, but tell me about some of your gnarly offs.
Yeah, he's got a good one from Blackhawk on my bike, my R6, because he lit his R1 on fire. Why don't you go through your leg thing?
Yeah, the R1s are the only downside to the R1 is the titanium rods. They have a tendency to just fail at some point. So you do have to watch that. So I blew a R1 motor and I wanted to complete the series in the 1000 class. So I took a 600. I was doing well until I got popped, and it must have spooked me or something, but I got bumped off the track at about 100 and the grass was wet. And so it just high sided and flipped me. So it went, so I had what's called a trimalleolar. So I broke my foot off, and so it just tears it apart. So luckily the joint is good, so I don't have any of that, but I can tell you if it's going to rain. So any pressure deltas, you feel it. But yeah, it's a common issue in most any two-wheel kind of thing is to have one of those. You'll see someone has right above their ankle, there's a little scar from plate. You have a plate on both sides or plate screws just to hold the joint back together.
I've actually never heard of that. Can you say that word again? Trimalleoma, is it?
It's just an orthopedic. It's trimalleolar.
Okay.
So yeah, where you both bones break, because your ankle is just like your wrist, so it'll rotate a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And your bones are held together like I'm sure you've had chicken wings, and so there's a fascia that holds those bones together. Once you tear it apart, they don't stay together. That's what's holding your ankle there.
Yeah.
So once they screw it all together, it's great.
So do you know if there's any sort of technology or medical advances coming for trying to relieve pressure in a joint that hurts from that type of thing?
Here's the screws and plate.
Oh, there it is. That was inside you?
Yeah, there it is. There it is. We got the plate here. Over here, we got the screws. Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
Probably
Just that-
acupuncture.
Acupuncture or like just relieving the pressure. You need like a valve there somehow.
For what now? What was the question? I'm sorry.
Like relieving the pressure. I wonder if there's anything coming out to, because I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I know when it's raining based on my joints." Like, there's got to be something to help that.
No, it's scar tissue and arthritis.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You can't really help it. You don't want to cut a hole in your body to like it's no.
A little bleed valve, a little nipple.
Relief valve or something.
It's probably a bad idea. Yeah. Most holes are there for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Little
That's why everyone relocates to Florida or Arizona, where there's not pressure deltas, right?
Yeah, I've been considering it. It looks like a nice place to live. And I looked up a little while ago causes of death by state based on weather conditions. And in Michigan, people die all the time of the cold. I'm like, that's not cool. I don't want to live here. And so it could be negative 20 degrees in the winter with wind chill and all that. And Florida, people die the most of rip currents, not hurricanes. I thought it would be hurricanes. It's definitely rip currents.
Being pulled out to sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Florida looks really nice, and they got no income tax, I hear, and Texas is the same way, I believe. So
Yeah,
those are
very
interesting
popular.
places to
You wouldn't be
live.
the first from Michigan to Florida. It wouldn't be the first.
We got a lot of snowbirds in Michigan and go south in the winter. There's a guy down my block who's got a house in Florida. He's always here. But I'm really considering it because you got 2 Daytonas, at least maybe 3 with CCS and ARMA and Moto America events, and there's NASCAR goes there. I mean, they always need workers. It'd be cool to be in that kind of area. You got St. Petersburg, and you got Homestead, Miami. Now you got the Miami Grand
Jennings.
Prix for Formula One. You got Sebring for IMSA. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's Jennings, and Little Tally is in Alabama, but
But
Georgia,
you can ride year round.
you can ride year round, and I'm beginning to do this motorcycle coaching stuff. So I can only do it like a couple months in Michigan, and then it's over with. So I think below the snow belt is where it's going to be. Coming up, my lease is up in March. So I've been here coming on 8 years, and it's time to move, I think.
There you go.
Time to start looking.
Is this your announcement? Is this the big announcement?
I think I'm going to be moving. I don't know where. Maybe Georgia looks nice. Alabama, maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't really been west of Texas. It'd be cool to be like Arizona, New Mexico, maybe. But then you're so far away from all the rounds I've already been going to. It's just going to be a whole new set of tracks. It seems a little scary, right? I don't know anything out there, but like I don't know how the organizations work. I don't know the people. I don't know, but it's all racetrack community. Like they're going to be pretty similar, just a little more West Coast.
Yeah, a little more West Coast, a little bit more noise regulations.
Yeah, it seems crazy that noise regulations out in the desert, but I guess if you go into California, you get more of those.
Yeah, like Laguna, they don't have it for Moto America because Moto America pays it off. But we did a track day there before the Moto America round, and they have noise regulations. So coming out of, I think, turn 5, there's a box on rider's right at the edge of the track where they're taking your DB. And you have to, on the R1s, it doesn't matter. It seemed to not matter what you did. We put DB killers in, it would still get flagged. You had to pull over to the left side of the track and then roll off the throttle and like put it in 6th gear and just cruise up this hill. And then as soon as you were passed, dump it back into 3rd and take the left-hander, take 6.
Oh, man.
And at the end of the day, I was like, it was like that last day. I was like, I need to run the track on the race line, like just to see what 6 is like at speed. Because we weren't doing it at speed at all. Come out of 5 and just rip it and dive into 6. And then I get the black flag because I blew noise. And I was like, I'm going to do one more lap because I needed to cross the line to see what my time was going to be. And so I did the other lap and came in. And so the limit was like 90 decibels, I think, from that box. something like that.
100. I think it's 103, something
Was
like
it?
that. 103, 104, something like that. But
'Cause I think
it's low.
I blew like 125 or something,
Oh,
like
wow.
way over. Just
Even with the killer in there?
yeah, with the DB killer
Yeah.
there.
It's the snorkels, the R1, the intake snorkels too. It makes a lot of noise with that. That's one of the things with the R1. So even I guess the boxes allows more, acoustics through it. But regardless, they pulled your sticker the first day. What are you talking about?
They did that too. Yeah,
They did pull your sticker.
They pulled it.
Yeah,
the first
they
day.
pulled your sticker.
But the second day,
They black flagged you 3 times. They pulled your sticker.
yeah, I got in a lot of trouble that weekend.
So we're actually welding up these new DB killers just to practice at Laguna. And what they do is you weld this little 45-degree pipe on it. So you direct the sound away from the microphone.
Okay.
And
so it's not really changing the amount at all. It's just the direction.
The direction.
Yeah, it's like wind. Sometimes you're at a baseball game and you can hear someone talking. The wind will carry the sound wave. So that's what you're doing, is directing it away. And it's kind of neat. A lot of the guys out there have those. And it's a little hodgepodge. And by the way, I don't remember that outfit, but that was the scariest damn track outfit. Remember how they did the red flag? They told us to stop on track.
When do you ever do that? I've never heard of that.
We were in shock. We were like, my God. And there were a few get-offs when we went practicing, and you just saw a pile of, what are they, the riders, red shirts, I forget.
Control riders.
Control riders. They just pull off like kids riding bikes and set their bikes on a tree, and then they helped the dude up, and then they went back out. It's crazy.
Insane. It's insane. There'd be like 5 guys on the wall right next to turn 3. And it's like, we're literally 20 yards away. I'm at speed and you're just walking around picking some guy's bike up. Like, that is so dangerous.
Like, who signed off on this one?
What insurance company was cool with this? Like,
maybe didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not going to let us ride again if we say that. But I'm not going to say who it was. But anyone I've said that to, I thought it was completely insane to stop on track during a red flag. I mean, it's lunacy is what it is. It's a racetrack.
Yeah.
Yeah,
now for cars, their deal is if you have a mechanical, you do, and you have to stop because you're in a car. You do not get out of the car for any reason until everything is stopped. Now I totally get that.
Pull over, turn the car off.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get out because you'll be hit by another car possibly. So you're in a good safe spot where you are. Just stay there, and we'll figure it out when everything's cooled down.
Yeah.
Which
same
is
with
like
the bikes. There's no different with a bike. Is it? I've blown a few motors. You just get off the track.
Yeah.
And try to get behind the barriers, push it off the track. But if you're able to do that, get off the track. But to stay on track is insane.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't see your foot out or the red flag, it's so dangerous. It's incredible. That freaked us out. Remember that they were sitting there going through that rider meeting? We were like, that's crazy. Like, are they kidding? Yeah.
We both agreed that if there was a red flag, we were just gonna putt our way into the pits. We were not gonna stop.
Not stopping on track.
I don't need some guy to not realize it's a red flag and me to have stopped like around a corner. Because a lot of those corners you can't see the exit.
Yeah, fairly blind.
Yeah. So it's like this dude doesn't see the red, and I'm just sitting there. Like,
I don't know what I've noticed. I've noticed from being a marshal is a lot of times when a rider crashes, they're either upset or angry or whatever, and that's fine. I get it. I've been in that situation, or they're hurt maybe, hopefully not, but they typically are not paying at all any attention to what's going on behind them. I've seen it many times where a rider crashes and he's just completely focused on where's the barrier now? Not wait, there's still bikes going on 140 miles an hour, 30 feet behind me. Maybe I should look that way. You saw it at the Road Atlanta crash a couple of years ago where there was a coolant hose came off on the Twins Cup bike.
Oh yeah, the Aprilia.
And everybody went down in turn 1, and somebody actually got hit because they were looking behind him. And even after there were multiple bikes around him, he still didn't look behind him.
Yeah.
So for anybody watching, as a marshal, the number one thing is to always look up track, because we don't want to die. If we get hit or something, we can't help you, first of all. And if there's now a marshal down in that same corner, now you got two people who need assistance, and there's less people to help. So our idea is always look up track, even if you're pushing a bike, even if you're picking up a bike. Don't even pick up the bike if you can't look up track.
I'm trying to think of where it was. Moto America last year, there was one round where there was a big crash. I think it was Brainerd, and the marshals were running for a bike. They were running for Danilo Lewis's bike, and then another bike came. You could see that marshals were like getting ready to move.
Yeah.
And you saw this other bike come into frame sliding towards them.
Yeah.
And the marshals were like dancing there, figuring out where this thing was going to go. Because I think it was, I know who it was because I was racing them, and I went under him and turned two at Brainerd, like that really fast, wide open right, which I knew was sketchy. I was like, we're just going to go for it. It's too late. We're side by side. And I knew he was going to try and outbrake me going into three. So I dance over to the left and brake a little early, and he goes by. And then, that turn three at Brainerd, the inside's a little sketchy. If you aren't on the line, it's a little rough. He started to tip in, hit it, washed out, and slid right in towards the marshals.
Oh, man.
That track had some casualties. There was some bike breaking at that track. I think like 3 cowies were destroyed there.
And
frames.
I remember there was one curbing that people would hit with their frame almost. They would lean over too much and either catch a knee on it or kind of catch some bike parts, and that frame, that curbing wasn't so good. I don't know if they repaired that or made it lower.
I'm trying to think. That could have been the chicane. I know there was some bitching about the chicane because it's super rough.
If you miss it, it wasn't good. If you missed it, you either had to completely miss it, which it was a problem. But if you couldn't ride over it, that was a challenge.
And that's one of the unique tracks that has a different start than it does the second lap, with like Sonoma or Infineon or like a Daytona type of track.
Yeah.
Well, they moved the finish line for Moto America to be where we started, because usually the finish line is back by the pit wall, which is such a sketchy location because you have that really, really tight left-hander immediately after. Like so many dudes would like run that finish line, like with CCS, they'd run that finish line and then blow that corner.
Forget to brake because they're so excited now.
Yeah, like, run through first base and then you miss the corner. So at least they moved that, because I was worried about that when they announced Brainerd. I was like, I hope the finish line isn't right there.
That one's hard on folks too, like the team. It's because it's super far away from where you're starting and where you're finished. So that was the challenge where your hot pit was. So those guys were hustling. You almost had to have 2 sets of stuff, right? So because it was so far away, because you couldn't take a cart out there.
And they had to run through the weeds. Remember, they had to run through like foliage because there wasn't really access to it. They need to pave that area.
There's not a path. Yeah, it's just a giant field. Yeah, it's crazy.
That track is very old school.
It's old school, and we were lucky to be here last year where there was a drought. So there was low mosquitoes. I mean, the state bird of Minnesota is a mosquito. And so there was low mosquitoes. The entire infield of that track is a marsh.
Oh.
And so it's just at night, it's like you'll get eaten alive as soon as the sun sets. But there was flies. And the good thing is it's dry, so they could actually walk that area. It'll be interesting to see this year if it's wet.
I would not expect that coming from Minnesota, being such a mosquito infested area. I would think somewhere more tropical, more Florida would have that more often.
Oh no,
there's so many wetlands up there.
Yeah,
like, it's all wet, so they just love it.
Yeah,
land of lakes, right?
10,000 lakes. 10,000 lakes. Miller Lake is. Yeah, that's right.
They actually define a lake as a much smaller body of water than the rest of the world. So
they had to get to 10,000.
The technicality.
Yeah, the technicality.
Little ponds here and there.
Yeah, that's a pond.
The funny thing, going back to your crashing comment, is that it's hard to teach people how to crash.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like there was a guy that had a get off last year at Road America and did a great job with it. I think it's Jeremy Cook. So he tucked his arms. So he tucked his arms so that way you don't flail and break an elbow or something like that. And so you see some of the younger guys that have been taught to tuck your arms, which
pull
is
your
really,
arms in.
really good idea. But like you said, you see it all the time. People don't look behind them. It's the craziest thing. It's like if you just came in and you had a low side and it was because there was debris on the track, you can bet your bottom dollar it happened in Indianapolis 2 years ago. There's a bunch of bikes that went down. I think that's where was it Matthew Skoltz he broke his ankle.
Yeah, and the S is there.
Yeah, there was a little something that was let down. I forget if it was oil or coolant, but
I think it was oil.
You saw Heron hit it, and he was able to save it, and then just Skoltz went down. So and then a bunch of bikes went down. So it's like and then you get hit. I think that was Bobier's bike hit him, didn't it?
It may have been, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting from a marshal's perspective is a yellow flag, a red flag, whatever flag you put out does not stop people from crashing. They can still crash under any flag condition. It doesn't matter if it's a warm-up lap or a cool-down lap or the last lap or the middle of the race or if you're on a straightaway. They can still crash anywhere for any reason, so you better be prepared. And just because you throw out that double yellow, it's not going to stop them.
No,
they still might come barreling into your corner. Now, if someone crashes under a yellow and there wasn't fluid down, I think it's reasonable that they could get a penalty because they're not following the safety protocols and they could get whether loss of points. I don't know if they dock points or add points to your license.
Yeah.
With Moto America, you get points on your license,
up,
and it depends. Like sometimes it's a time penalty. Like I know the Junior Cup race on Sunday at Atlanta, there was waving yellows in the S's for a crash bike, and so that means no passing. But the bike that won the race on track passed in there, and so he got a 5-second time penalty.
Yeah.
Because
that's reasonable. I understand.
Pass under waving yellows, so you have to cede the position or take a penalty, and he took a penalty.
Yeah, and there was controversy at the Road Atlanta round for Moto America in the Junior Cup class with Kayla Yakov crossing the line first, but then a couple of people got demoted positions because they did pass under a stationary yellow. In Moto America, you can't pass under stationary or waving yellow. However, in other series, you can pass under a stationary yellow.
Right.
So it confuses people with, I work for now 8 different organizations from car racing to motorcycle racing. Every single one of them has different rules. I guess maybe CCS and ASRA are the same. Well, that's it.
With Moto America, the flag rules are the FIM rules.
So they have waving. Well, actually, I don't think that's true because there's a stationary yellow and FIM is all flags are waving.
No, FIM has a standing yellow.
Not for MotoGP.
Sure
it's all waving yellow. It's a still waving yellow or a double waving yellow. There is no stationary flags.
But I do know with the black flag and the meatball, a lot of organizations have it reversed from what the FIM has it.
Yeah, so it's confusing too.
Moto America is always clarifying in the riders meeting what the meatball is and what the black flag is because they are reversed.
Yeah. One of them is a disqualification. You forgot your transponder situation. And the second one is you have stuff coming off your bike. You need to get off the track right now.
Yeah, get off the track. And you don't want to mix them up. I think of it
like you got mom's spaghetti on yourself already, right? So if it's spaghetti, you probably got something on your bike with the meatball flag.
With Moto America, though, now the meatball is you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And the black is get out, like get off the fucking track.
And so at Daytona, we had a bunch of guys being flagged for the transponder issue. And they would come to our station like, oh, what's wrong? It's like, no, that's the flag where you need to go into race control. And so I was at 3 coming out of the pit lane waving. I was the flagger for that event at 3. So right before there's 2 sections there, you can either take the race course or you're coming out on the far end around the cones. And those cones can be sketchy. You don't want to hit a cone at 100 miles an hour.
I hit a cone in Atlanta, and I think that's what gave me belly pan damage.
Okay, yeah.
I realized I was looking, my belly pan has this scuff on it, and I was looking at it. I was like, that's when I fucking grabbed that cone coming into the pit lane.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't intending on going to the pit, and then I came out of the chicane and saw a slow bike ahead of me, and it was qualifying, and I was like, I'm not dealing with this. That qualifying was tricky. 40 bikes on track, trying to get out of traffic. It was a pain.
Yeah. a lot of traffic and probably not going to get many clean laps in.
Yeah, no, I didn't. It was
Mhm.
brutal qualifying too.
And they
But
won't take your optimal time, of course. You have to put it together.
oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was brutal. My optimal time was much better than my real time. But
And
your
well, how
Daytona,
far? Go ahead.
your Daytona, we watched that race on the TV, and the dude at the chicane in the white pants was putting in work. that corner worker was doing work, picking
Oh,
those
yeah.
twins bikes up and all
I
that.
think one of them was Mark. There's a bunch of British guys that come over who live here now. But after a while, you're like, oh, I know that guy. I know who that is. Or you can see the different people. And I'm always out there. I try to wear the same thing. People recognize me. Like I always got this wide brim hat on. And I usually have a couple lanyards hanging down with a whistle and usually a radio and all that. So people when I'm running out there sometimes they'll tag me in it and like take the video of me running out there, and it's cool to see, you picking up a bike. Or at Road Atlanta, I was at the final turn coming out of the main straightaway, and there's a big gravel pit there, so everybody's
I was in that gravel pit.
I would probably have picked you up then.
I was in that. I blew the last corner and wound up in that gravel pit.
Yeah, I was. I don't remember all the numbers who went down there, but I was
There's a
working
lot.
there Saturday and Sunday. Friday, I was at turn 7, and I remember I picked up 177 and 17 in turn 7. But yeah, turn 12, that big gravel pit, everybody was kicking up rocks. They'd go a little wide, and then there'd be dozens of rocks or a huge slew of rocks on the track. So after the session, we go out there and we're brooming up, sweeping rocks, but we only have one broom. So I happen to grab the broom, and there's 3 workers in our corner. So they're out there literally kicking rocks as I'm sweeping.
Yeah,
So
the Stock
silly.
1000 race, I remember seeing someone hit the gravel because I came out of that last corner, and you're kind of like, is this going to make an issue or is this going to be fine?
Yeah.
And you're just like, same thing at Brainerd in the chicane. There was chunks of asphalt sitting there. You remember that?
Yeah,
And
it was pretty rough.
Like people, you'd hit them and you get tossed up with the guy behind
Yeah,
you.
it was rough.
You don't want that to hit your windscreen or your shield or your helmet.
Your body. Yeah, I don't want it to hit
your neck,
me.
your arms, anything.
Like you'll hit a bug and get a bruise sometimes. Like a big enough June bug will fucking bruise you.
Yeah, I was seeing tons of those dragonflies getting sucked into the aerodynamics of the Formula One cars. They were everywhere, like on the track, dead. I was like, that's amazing. I've never seen so many dragonflies on a track.
Just sucked into the floor, fucking spat out.
Yeah, and it was crazy. So the weather was pretty good. Wasn't really rainy for a moment there.
It was just super hot, right?
Yeah, for a small moment, it was light drizzle, and then it kind of went away. But it was very humid, and you could see with no rain the spray of the air from the cars. Like you see the downforce, the shoot up of air after the cars.
Yeah,
it was just amazing. It's just you see the wake of it's like the mirage looking through the air being moved around. I've never seen that before.
Probably because of how humid it was too. It was condensing that air, causing the water to come out a little bit so you could see it.
It's just like amazing to see 10 feet away from you.
Yeah, and you can see like the little, I forget what they're called, like the vortices coming off the wings and stuff.
Yeah, on both sides, spinning.
Yeah, the little spins. Yeah.
And we were right at the end of or the start of a DRS zone, right under a bridge. And so you could see if the cars are close enough together, their rear wing going up and down. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, those cars are ridiculous. Honestly, they're insane. What they're capable of, like.
And this isn't even all the technology that they've developed. I always think about. I mean, I know it's incredibly expensive now, but what if we had a series that was
fully open?
That was completely open. Yeah, you didn't have any restrictions. You didn't have like they've made these turn-based suspension systems where you have different changing cambers and different changing suspension stiffness and compression, rebound, whatever. And so what if you had all that technology that's been developed into one series? You'd have to start building different racetracks because they're going to go 300 miles an hour.
Porsche did that with their Le Mans car, their prototype car. They took it and were like, let's just make this thing no rules. It was like after they pulled out of Le Mans, they just built that thing to be as fast as possible. And they took it to Spa and beat a Formula One car on that track by like several seconds. And that thing has a V4, like it's a turbo V4, and it was just ripped. Like with no restrictions, they can go crazy with this stuff. But it is a cost thing. It is crazy because it would just be runaway spending. Whoever can spend the most money is gonna win.
This is pocketbook racing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what racing is, but that's why there's rules.
Yeah, help tame down the classes, spending. It'd be cool to see like a $500 class or like a claim your rule, a CRT. They got $1,000. That's what you can spend on your motorcycle.
That would be kind of neat. Like excluding fuel and tires, it's like you have to find a Craigslist bike and put it together for $1,000.
Just a hoopty.
Yeah. Excluding a few items like maybe a chain, stuff that you wouldn't want failing. You wouldn't want people skipping on.
Well, even in stock, it's like that. I mean, they do that in car racing now. You can buy a car, and then it's basically pink transfers, and you can call someone out.
Yeah,
right?
lemons.
But,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, but think about what we're doing. I mean, even stock 1000 is considered stock, but the reality is it's really not. I mean, you have suspension. You can do a head gasket. You really can't do anything else to the motor, but to allow you to put a better slipper in. And then obviously, if you have a BMW, you can adjust everything on the bike, geometry, everything. So you're lightening up components. You take off the cat. So I mean, the bike's 30 pounds lighter, right? It has stainless steel brake lines on it. So it's really not stock, right? It's close to stock, but not.
It's like a stock motor type of thing, like stock internals. But the rest of the bike is basically open. Road America, Atlanta, anywhere with a big straight, that horsepower delta really shows. I mean, it doesn't show as much at tighter tracks like Laguna. It won't be as obvious, or Pit really, but it still matters to the guys on track. It's just not as blatant, like think about like 2020 when PJ showed up with that Ducati in stock 1000. The horsepower delta was insane. Like the dude just literally walked away. He just finally decided to open the throttle and go away. It was like he had probably like 10 horsepower on those cowies and was just disappeared. Yeah. And when you think about 10 horsepower, it doesn't sound like much, but I mean, it's a huge difference on a bike.
It means a lot when your bike's only 400 pounds. It means less when your car is 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
Well, think about it. It's even if you have a 3 mile an hour delta, if you're standing still and someone's walking at 3 miles an hour, average speed, they're going to walk by you.
Yeah.
It's 3 miles an hour.
That's not even talking about exiting the corner faster than the other guy. At the end of the straightaway, it's going to be even more than that.
Yeah. In like a perfect world, if you exited the corner identical, open the throttle, like everything was the same, and then you hit this line to do a drag race, basically, it just makes a huge difference by hitting that straight.
Yeah, I remember racing against a guy who would always show up with a bike that would cost at least $10,000 more than not mine, and I'm like, I'm catching him in every corner, in every braking zone. I'm right there. And then he just walks away from me like, oh, what the hell can I do about it? We're supposed to be in the same class. And when I was starting out, I would even race 6 classes in Wera. I would have a stock 600. I'd race both 600, super stock, super bike. Same thing for 750, super stock, super bike, and 1000, super stock, super bike. So I'm used to getting walked away from. I'll just try to make it up in the braking zone and see if I can stay with you.
It is frustrating as hell though if you're under power. I had a bad motor at Atlanta last year, and it was frustrating. You'd get on a corner and people they're gone. It's super frustrating.
When you're like
tuck. Yeah, hoping to kick the bike along, hoping to get a little bit of speed out of it. It's crazy.
Or you're doing the whole like push forward.
Yeah. It's just wondering, like looking down at it, is it a 600? It's crazy. So it'll be. I think Road America will be interesting, especially with all those BMWs. That'll be fascinating to watch to see what those things open up and do.
We got like 3-4 drag strips there with a couple turns.
And the fastest one is coming to Canada. It's all protected, right? There's no wind there.
That is, definitely is the fastest straight there, which is kind
Yeah.
of funny because you have the slowest entry to the straight, and it's not the longest. I think
No.
it
It's
is
not
just
straight either.
no,
No.
it's also not straight.
No. And then turn 5 is good too. That's a good straight. The real straight that's uphill, the exhibition straight, is slower, but you can get to some speed on that. I guess it's what, 190 on Superbike.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's only about 190. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just strange, but it's a bigger turn to come into, which feels
Yeah.
safer. It'll be interesting. That one will be great to see because it, let's just hope if it's dry, right? Then you'll see those bikes really go crazy. It'll be neat to see.
If it's wet
intrigued.
though, nice and equal playing field.
Yeah, it's definitely an equalizer, especially with the horsepower, the end result horsepower. But it is interesting to see that shift from Kawasaki. What is it? Half the field's on BMW now, it seems.
Yeah.
Well,
everyone that was on a Cowie is switched. There's no Cowies in the front.
Why do you think that is? You think it's a benefit to be on the Beamer?
Oh, I know exactly why. I talked to a dude who couldn't qualify. He's last year was on a 19 Cowie and he qualified for every round. He was out there for all of them. He got a 2021 Cowie for this season, showed up to Atlanta, couldn't qualify. And it's because the IMU, whenever there's elevation changes on track, the IMU thinks the bike is either falling or like flying through the air. So it cuts all engine power.
Really?
Like I got behind him and we were going down into the last corner. And as soon as he was on power and then he hit the hill and it just was like he just rolled off instantly, which I mean, you're on power going down that hill. And he wasn't. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't fucking ride this thing. Like I've tried everything. It just, the IMU is just, it's totally screwed up. So
They need a
That's
different
why there's no
electronics
Cowies.
package for it.
yeah, but you have to use the stock package. You can't use like a Magnani Morelli
For the
in
stock
stock
class.
1000. Yeah.
Yeah. Man,
You have to use the kit or what comes on the bike.
sounds like a tip over sensor's going off or acting up too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like it's acting like there's a tip over sensor, but then the bike comes back to life as soon as you're on level ground.
Oh
So
man,
it's super weird. I don't know what their
sounds like
problem is.
they're losing out on some good coverage and a good race bike just based on one little electronic fault.
Yeah, and it's a known problem. Apparently it was an issue with the 20 as well,
Mm.
but it's like gotten worse. I don't know, but
Man,
that's why there's now more Suzuki's, Hondas, and BMWs and not Cowies.
That's a shame. That's my go-to brand, the Cowies. I just bought a Kawasaki KLX 300 Supermoto for my street bike.
That's cool.
So little grocery getter, it's the smallest
sure.
smallest bike I've ever had, but
Sure.
it's fun to go around a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, Cowies obviously got to resolve that because that's a real
That's a
problem.
big issue. You can't even run the bike anymore in that whole class. That they've got to have some sort of thing in the works for that.
Yeah,
I hope
wouldn't-
anyway.
I don't know I'm not an engineer for Cowie. I don't know what their problem is, but I would hope that they're gonna do something about it.
Yeah, we need all the manufacturers we can get.
Yeah. And those Cowies were the new ones for whatever reason were cracking frames.
Just can't handle the stress of the racetrack, maybe.
The stress of being crashed.
I cracked a frame on a Kawasaki, actually, and I didn't even notice it until I was at the track for a new race event.
Was
And,
it riding weird, or did you just like keep riding it?
It felt fine, and once I noticed the crack, I continued the rest of the weekend. I just made sure I didn't crash again.
A little duct tape on it, just a little cover.
No, I didn't do shit. I just that weekend was interesting. Normally, I don't race with clapped out bikes, but this time my second gear didn't work. I could use it to shift up, but I couldn't come from third to second anymore. So after the start of the race, I just didn't use second gear, and I kept it third or higher. And I was only a couple tenths off my lap time. I think I was 2 or 3 tenths off a lap, which I was happy with. And then I just kind of took it easy. I didn't push it as hard because I didn't want to be crashing on an already cracked frame and no second gear. But I think I got like top 5 that weekend. Like it was it was all right.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine not having second gear. We use second gear so much. Like
Well,
it's
I'm on a
probably
600. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. I think you would maybe go down to second gear twice on that track.
what track was it?
It was at Grattan, same track. That's my
Okay.
home track. But Yeah, I mean, you can do it. You're just not gonna get ideal torque out of the corners.
Yeah, we use the shit out of second gear.
I mean, it was different, but you should
It was
try.
certainly
You should
different. A lot more
definitely
roll
try.
speed.
I mean, there's all kinds of different drills. Like imagine you lost your seat in a race, so you have to stand up the rest of the session. Or you imagine you lost your right foot peg. How are you gonna ride? Imagine you.
You don't.
lose-
Yeah, if I lost my right foot
You
peg, I
don't.
think I'm coming in. Like
I mean,
I have,
yeah.
like, because you have to load that peg. You got to load it. I don't know. You can't be competitive without a fucking right foot.
Well, not with that attitude.
I mean, maybe no right, but if you didn't have a left foot peg, there's no way.
I mean, you could still shift.
Unless it was a
just be hard.
championship decider, I'd be like, I'm coming in. This is too sketchy.
Or
Maybe you
there's
could rest it on the swing arm a little bit, like your foot.
you're just gonna be tired after the end.
Yeah, that leg's gonna be all cramped up.
There was a crash I remember seeing years ago, watching the replays on MotoGP, where guy crashes, goes back out, doesn't check all the controls. Like, yeah, I think I'll be fine. Let's see if I can keep racing. He's now, a couple corners in, going 120 miles an hour, remounted and everything. Realize he doesn't have a front brake lever. Oops. And then just rear brake and some engine braking and coming up to a braking zone that's now first, second gear. Oh, he lost it again at 120 miles an hour. It's like, you better check all your controls are working. Maybe pump that brake again because your brake pads are probably at least spread out. But you don't know lever to grab. He's going grab. There's nothing to grab. That's terrifying right there.
That is so scary. I had to crash at Road America. It was in novice with CCS. We were coming down in a turn 5, and I was about mid-pack. And this dude, like, Road America and CCS in the 600 class is like, you have to survive the first lap. Like, the 600 class in novice is just survival until everyone gets settled down. And I think I was leading that championship, the stock 600 class that year. And this dude, he was behind me and he was trying to like be a hero into 5 and low sided. And I was mid corner. Like I was fully leaned over and I see this bike out of my peripheral and I stand the bike up and I jump him. He's under his bike. I jump his bike, land, and then hit the gravel and the bike spills. I run over to the dude. I shout something at him and then run to my bike and then pick it up. And I'm like thinking about getting off the track. I'm touching all the stuff. The clutch is bent into a C, and like on that bike, I didn't have clutchless downshift. So I still needed the thing. And the front brake is like way down. So I have to like bring my arm down to grab it. And I was like, fuck it, let's just finish the race. So I was like coming into corners and like grabbing for the front brake and trying to get my fingers around the clutch. It was a mess, but got it back, got it done. I was
finished the
pretty
race and
pissed at that
everything.
dude. Yeah, finished the race. I think I got back into the points because there was like a ton of bikes, but I brought it back because him and my mom were at the pit wall. They were watching that race, and I was like putting my arm up because I was like, "What the fuck? Look at this thing!"
Yeah,
it was all beat to shit. Yeah, that one was tough. That one was disappointing. Having that dude fucking slide in there.
You never like it when someone makes a blatant terrible pass and takes you out. It's okay if it's like you're both really fighting and you just make a small mistake.
Yeah, we're both really going for it, but something like a mile away, just a dive bomb that takes us both out. It's just silly. It's just stupid. That's like the yellow plate meat grinder stuff.
I've even had it when people, like I'm okay with banging a little bars here, but banging bars where your clutch lever gets fully engaged during a corner. And then your engine, you're still got the revs, so your revs are going up. You're like, oh, wait a minute, what do I do? Do I let off the throttle in mid-corner? And then immediately you don't have any time to react. Now the clutch lever is dumped, and you're like, oh, God, am I going to high side myself? It's like you're just along for the ride at that point.
Yeah. Like there's a video from years ago, long time ago at Daytona of a dude getting switchbacked on going into the chicane, and the dude fucking rubs his front brake with his leathers, and the guy just instantly just somersaults. And it's the chicane at Daytona, like they hadn't gotten on the brakes yet, so it's like you're going fast.
Heading straight for those tire walls there.
Yeah. That must have been horrifying.
Or Mazziato this year getting airborne on the
Oh my God.
banking. What is that about?
Dirt biking the wall. And he was like, "Yeah, I saw it coming. I just got ready to hit it like a
Like a berm,
berm." Yeah.
and don't even let up. He just stayed fully in the throttle and then hit 2 other bikes, and then everybody stayed in it.
He almost collected 2 guys in the process of that. Like
That was
that's
wild.
ridiculous.
No, that's what
Goes to
it's
show
kind
how
of,
slippery that is, those walls.
yeah. At some point, it kind of stinks as a marshal that I don't get to see what happens like at the other side of the track, and I don't even know what happened until like I watch it later. But it's cool seeing all the different things. And one of the crashes I got was in my corner. I forget who it was, but before they even hit the ground, I had the yellow flag out waving, and it was on TV, and I saved it as like a a quick 30-second thing. But like, oh wow, look, the flag is out, and the rider's on the ground and all this stuff, and I'm like, that's me in the back waving the flag. And but it's cool to have such an immediate response time that I saw, because I'm around racing and know the sport, and I saw the rear tire of one bike get into the front tire get into the rear of the bike in front, and immediately that bike is going to be going down on the left, and got it up immediately. You're supposed to have the flag in your hand, ready to go. They say unfurled, so not all wound up. Ready to
just
go.
right behind the wall.
Yeah, at any second.
I've had some moments on track that I saved, but I like saw the corner worker like halfway out. Like the bike was all over, and I saw him halfway out when I recovered it.
He was
I was
like,
like, no.
ready.
I was like, put that away. I got it.
There's been one time, and I've done 15 events now as a marshal, and there's been one time that somebody put a flag out that they shouldn't have. It was a red flag, and they thought it was a yellow. That they were supposed to put out a yellow, and they put out a red.
That's confusing. That's super confusing.
So if that happens, the rule is, and it was in CCS at Homestead, Miami. It was the first lap, I think, which was good. It's a full restart of the race.
Yeah.
Because they would usually, I think, maybe go a lap back and under certain circumstances. But this
if it's
time,
a 5-lapper.
I think it was 8 laps.
Okay.
8 laps or so. And so they just did a full restart, and just because if one person sees that red, now they ruin their race, and they're going to come into the pits, and it's not fair for them. So they have to make it fair for everybody. But usually people are pretty good about showing the right flags. I don't know anybody who's a flagger who's colorblind. And if they are, because I thought about that, could they work if they're disabled somehow? It's actually written on the bottom of the flag, like green, just a G, R, Y. So there's no excuse. Even if you're colorblind, you can still flag properly.
Well, maybe you shouldn't do that job if you're colorblind.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
because as bikes are going by, every time we're not just watching, we're seeing, okay, what color is that bike? What number is that bike? What leathers? Trying to identify what bike it is, because every time they go by, I'm like, okay, number 2, number 4, number 6, number 8, whatever. And if number 6 is in front of 2 now, I'm like, oh, number 6 is the guy to watch. He's the fastest one out there, and you see how they all spread out and get in front of each other. So it's a really good way to identify riders and also be paying attention. Because you want to, if it's a race event, you're like, okay, that's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and not just randomly not paying attention to what's going on.
Well, and if you have to like black flag someone or something, and you need a plate.
Yeah.
You want it'd be handy to know what you're looking for already.
For sure, I already know the order of the race, and typically I know who's on the bikes too, which is helpful.
They threw a checkered at me and a couple other guys last year at Washington. We were obviously in the back of the pack, but they threw the checkered too soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the guys were like a corner behind you. The leaders were a corner behind you.
Well, they were actually about 3 corners behind us. So technically, we won that race. and it's, I mean, technically we did. It was funny. I went to go talk to the marshals about it, and they said, well, did they pass you? I said no. So we weren't lapped, and so they had to go to the video. And when they were sort of giving us a hard time about it, I basically said, what does a checkered flag mean? Finish because he kept on saying, well, you knew you didn't do the 13 laps. I said, yeah, I saw the counter, and I was wondering why they threw the checkered, but I said, I'm not in race control. I don't know. It was hot. It was like 115 degrees, and I didn't know if someone, if someone bonked out or if they just called it, or because I mean, it was so hot when you turned the bike out there. I actually looked down to see if it was on fire.
Yeah.
Because you could fry an egg on a pavement. So
the heat would come up and hit
crazy.
you, and you're like, oh my God.
That was electrical. I was plagued with electrical issues last year. I had no quick shifter and no auto blip or back shift at Washington, which made those hills almost treacherous to ride.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Yeah, short shifting and
auto blipping a 1000 is by hand is something else.
It's tiring.
Well, it doesn't really work that well.
No.
It doesn't really work that well. I think that's what helped burn clutches up when I was having to do that. It was crazy. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
They don't auto blip. Yeah, so they miss throw flags all the time.
Yeah, it definitely happens for sure. And if you're so close to the guy behind you, they might throw it anyways if you're right about to get lapped. And it's hard to. And what I've learned from being a marshal is wearing the headsets is you don't hear or you have no idea what the radio communication is, really what's going on. All the time I raced, I had no idea what they were talking about. Yeah. And so I really didn't even know how a corner was flagged at first. And so when it's the last lap of the race, we'll call around the leader of the race, leader number 3, 4 at turn 6. And next corner station, he's at turn 7 and at turn 8, so that the flagger knows when he's going to show the flag next. So that we can pick out the flagger. He's coming down the main straightaway. Sometimes they'll say he's in a group, or he's the first one in the group, or maybe he's the third one in the group. So if he's the third one in the group of a group being lapped and they're not showing blue flags, it's like, how do you pick out that one rider in a group of 3? It's impossible. You can't. You might throw it a rider or 2 early to get the leader, but then you're going to piss off the guy who's just about to be lapped because he doesn't get his full race. And there's even been races that I was in racing as in a cart that they didn't throw the flag when I knew it should have been the end of the race. So I just went a lap further, and at the end of the timing and scoring, it showed that I lapped the whole field because second place got the checker flag and I didn't see the checker, so I just did another lap.
That's hilarious.
That can happen too, both ways. You either get it late or you get it early. It's not a math test. It's not like 100% perfectly done thing. And some of the flaggers, it depends what flaggers, who's doing it.
Yeah.
It
depends on where people are at and sort of just where bikes are at and when it's called.
That's one of the reasons why I like doing it, because you actually have an effect on the outcome of races. Just look at the Formula One Grand Prix final last year where there was a crash, and then the World Championship was decided in that restart. And if the marshals would have taken a minute longer to clear that car,
it would have finished under safety car.
It would have finished differently, and the World Championship would have been flipped.
Mm-hmm.
So just that, how fast you respond changes outcomes of things dramatically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is pretty neat.
I totally agree. And because we don't have shift to shore on the bikes, we don't have any comms besides a pit board.
Yeah.
So you have no idea what's going on behind you, or technically in front of you.
Yeah. Right. If it's out of your sight line, you don't know what's going on.
You don't know what's going on. Yeah. You don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Now, do you think that there should be communication between pit lane or maybe spotters and the rider, or do you think it's too much going on? We don't need that in motorcycle racing.
No, I think it should be. I think we should be allowed to do it, because I know in GP right now they're testing because on their dashes they have, in previous years, like the FIM or whatever could send like track limits warnings to their riders' dashes, so because they have sensors on those like green surfaces, so when they hit that green, that's track limits, and so they have they can send a message onto their dash, that like a pop-up that shows them like this is your second warning for track limits. And so now the teams are working on using that to send information.
Well, aren't some of them using use engine mapping 3 or something like that?
Yeah, like just little just stuff, just little information, like whatever they want them to do, whatever's going on.
The question is, why is there not ship to shore on bikes? Is it because former technology, that walkie-talkie was too big, so you could potentially harm yourself in a crash. So why is there not when every other form of racing has it? So
I think it's because they don't want you to take your hand off the bars and press buttons all the time.
But we do that
Well,
anyway.
we are doing that anyway. We're
do that
touching,
anyway.
we're like adjusting brake
Yeah.
levers. We're pushing traction control modes and stuff like that.
Sometimes you change the Netflix you're watching.
Yeah.
Right?
You
Switch
gotta
it up.
skip the song.
You gotta skip the song. Got Days of
Yeah,
Our
I mean,
Lives on.
if you guys think it's no problem, I don't have a problem with it. In the past, maybe it's a cost-cutting thing, but I mean, how much does a radio cost? $200?
Well,
maybe the size of the radio. Like the point is that if it was too big formerly, or the
like
size
those chatterboxes.
Well, yeah. I mean, they have them. They have the earpieces. They've had those for years. We're wearing them now, but maybe it was the size. That's the only thing I could think of. I mean, because it's really not a rider distraction. I mean, you're watching a pit board that's in some tracks is way off track.
Yeah.
And it actually is distracting because you're trying to see the flagger who's on the contralateral side. So, it's distracting enough. I don't know why having a shift to shore would be great, because then they could just hit you up. It's like red,
Yeah.
or or because it would potentially save in these huge pileups when you have an oil or one of these a water spill. I get it. Maybe it is too much, but at the same time, it's part of racing. They do it in karting. They're
I don't
shift
see
to
why
shore
it would
karting.
be. I don't think it'd be too much
I don't think it
of a
would be.
distraction, because I mean, what do you like? You're sitting there on the bike. You're not listening to really anything. Like, I mean, sure, you can kind of listen to the motor to shift. That's it. But like, if your pit wall chimes in like, hey, plus 10, like 1/10 behind you.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
That's awesome. That would be awesome.
And we were talking. We were theorizing it, because you could literally put the electronics, because like Formula One, they have the earplugs that go on, and then the trail goes through their suit for the cable. We were talking about you could store the electronics for the actual comms in the hump, and then just zip your hump up and then put your lead in there.
Yeah.
And it's not like that tether is going to be dangerous, because it's just chasing down the side of you into the hump, which, I mean, it's all bound to you. It's not like you're bound to the bike in any way.
Yeah, and they have tethers that are used with airbag systems right now anyways.
Yeah. People are tethering themselves to the bike anyway, so it's kind of like
a jet ski ripcord.
Yeah. It's like a kill switch on a jet ski.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not allowed. It would be way easier, because looking at the pit boards, sometimes you're like, which one's mine? Because I mean, it's a sea of pit boards that come out. So you're like, where am I at?
And sometimes that pit board might be right before a braking zone where you don't want to be looking over there. You want to be paying attention to your braking point.
Yep. By the time you see it, you got to slow down.
It usually is, because that's how they stack out, on pro racing, is that the top teams get the first hot pit. So it's usually like that anyway. So you are coming into a braking zone and you have to see the pit board, and it's like, it's really distracting. I'll tell you, it's hard to see. I'd love to have shift to shore on. It'd be great, especially for think about it, like Daytona, for fuel.
Yeah.
You'd be like, no, you have 13 laps or whatever it is, 18 laps on that tank. I mean,
it could have saved Heron.
Yeah, because you really don't know. You're just guessing, and when do I come in, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're relying on your pit board for, right? When they should be there to bring you in. But if you knew, it's like, no, you're low.
Yeah.
But then you can kind of take it to one more level. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't have, telemetrics at that point, where you could actually talk to the vehicle, which would be cool.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that too, like, because you could send data through. But the issue is with you really couldn't send data at most of these tracks, because like F1, their tracks, like their biggest track is probably Spa. Their smallest track, I don't know what their smallest track would be. Maybe Miami.
Sao Paulo, maybe?
Yeah, like really confined. And that's not our biggest track. So my point is, they have like these 5G tethers set up all around the track, just to bounce data and video off the cars to the pit wall. Like there's no way you could send data at Road America from like the carousel back to the pit wall, like 1.5 miles away.
Well, it is, and it's possible. It just costs a lot of money.
Well, you would have to have those like you'd have to have these hotspots to bounce the data through. Because I mean,
Yeah.
it's not huge data, but it's like our data is about 500 megs, like 500 megabytes for a session. So you're sending probably a megabyte live because you want it to be live data, or you could do per lap as you approach the pit. But it wouldn't be possible to do perfectly live in sync with where you're at just
Right.
because of the connection we have. Like
Yeah.
think about Minnesota, like the cell reception there at that track is bad on its own. Like,
Yeah.
and
You
as
have
soon
to
as
create
you
your
had
own network.
trees, yeah, you'd have to like station you'd have to hide little hotspots around the track.
Yeah.
Like little lock boxes.
Oh, so
to-
talking about connection and data and all that, Road to Atlanta was the first time. It was a very unique situation in the Superbike class for the last second race. We were speculating what was going on because nothing was going through the radio communication. They did a full grid procedure and then they went back to the pit lane. And what happened was the TV cameras went down. All the electronics, there was a fault. The TV screen in the pit lane went down, and all the camera crews were out of power. So they delayed the start of the race. I was thinking maybe there's oil on track. Maybe they didn't like the surface somehow. Maybe they wanted to do another sighting lap. But yeah, it was just TV. I've never heard of a race being delayed from TV delays, TV technicalities. But I guess if you're broadcasting it,
Yeah.
you need
if
that.
the rights are sold.
Yeah.
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 I think
Cruise
the
ship,
discussion
the
is
rights are sold.
possibly academic, though. I don't think we're going to have any chance to do ship to shore just yet, unless the FIM changes the rules on it, right? And then definitely data is expensive, so they're not going to do it in the stock classes for sure. But it would be neat to have a radio in your helmet.
But at very minimum, as long as you have nothing else on your helmet externally,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. And
because it would just be earplugs. It wouldn't be
all
like
you need is you need a cell phone and like a regular Bluetooth you could just stick in your ear, and you'd be good. That's it. You don't even need a radio system. You just use a cell phone and call it a day.
Yeah, it's a 30-minute call.
You might get some roaming, but you get it done.
Hang on, I might lose you here going to the kettle bottoms.
going under a bridge.
Hey Siri.
Yeah. It's a good time to catch up with grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, then you'd be getting calls from all sorts of people. You need to put it on Do Not Disturb and all different settings.
You need car insurance?
Yeah.
Man, I'm talking about spam calls. I don't even answer my phone anymore. Unless it's somebody in my contacts, I get probably 10 spam calls a day.
Yeah,
but,
I get a ton.
Did you buy the Viagra or not?
I did not.
How about the duct cleaning? So it's duct cleaning, auto, right? You get an auto warranty and usually Viagra.
Yeah,
all good things.
Yeah. All sorts of stuff. And somebody's calling me. I must be on some list, and they think I'm Elizabeth.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, hi, Elizabeth. Did you want this home coverage or insurance?" I'm like,
I love the IRS ones. Where it's like the IRS are trying to reach you. You're going to be arrested tomorrow. And it's like, okay.
Come and get me.
Okay, automatic voice tone for sure. Yeah. From like some God knows where.
Yeah.
Like Nebraska. Okay.
So one thing you guys wrote that you wanted to mention was the climb from novice track day riders to making it to pro Moto America and what that entails and what that involves.
Probably a lot of, it's weird because it's like any sport, you gotta keep growing, keep trying new stuff, but really just time and being open to new ideas. Because like we know guys that we ride with that it's like they'll be bitching about suspensions. You're like, dude, just try something. Like, we've been at this track day all weekend and you haven't touched the bike once. Like, there's a reason you're not getting faster. It's because you're not trying anything.
You gotta try new lines, you gotta try new body position, you gotta try new suspension, maybe new gearing, maybe different fuel if you're trying to go faster.
Different springs, different preload, different compression, maybe even a different shock length. Also, the adjustability is like infinite in this stuff, you know, and you can get lost in it, which I get why there's some aversion with certain people. like why it's so daunting, which I think suspension's like a black magic. I don't really get all of it. Like some dude will tell me to do something, like one of like these K-Tech guys will be like, all right, do this, and I'll do it. And I'll be like, oh my God, like that is completely different bike.
But better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made a huge change at Atlanta where the bikes wouldn't track well. They just weren't tracking well, and then you couldn't crack throttle, so that instantaneous throttle was not causing enough swing arm angle. And then so what is it? Orient Express. So Lenny and Skip from K-Tech made some. We completely went in an opposite direction of suspension, and I think we both dropped like 2 to 3 seconds immediately.
Yeah,
Dramatic.
Yeah, it was huge. And so that's the whole point. I mean, we literally looked at each other like, do you think this is right? I mean, we completely did the opposite thing.
It was the opposite of our whole setup we had been running the year before, and it totally worked. That's the sort of stuff that
Cool.
I think
It's really cool.
I think to be able to stay competitive, you have to keep learning and trying new stuff. You can't just stagnate. Because I mean, you know,
yeah.
you plateau with any sport. You're gonna plateau at certain points, and you just got to kind of keep working through it. Because it can be disheartening when you're like, I have been trying everything and I'm still running a 112 at Blackhawk. Like,
Yeah. Well, I say every session you should change something, whether it's your line or something on your bike, whether it's you or your bike, something should change every session so that you're always trying new things and trying to improve, whether it's, wheelbase, geometry,
yeah,
suspension, something should change so you can just keep
see what
progressing.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, half the time, like, because at Moto America, you have practice, qualifying 1 and 2. And so it's like you have 3 sessions to figure it out. So you got to do the most you can in those 3 sessions. We'll run a different setup in all 3 sessions and then come into the pits to change stuff throughout. But like a track day, because of how many people are on track, how many bikes are there, it's a lot easier to pick like 1 or 2 corners and just work on that, because there's no way you're getting a clean lap. There's no way you're going to get out there and have a fast lap. So it's sort of like just pick a spot, work on it, and then just keep moving it throughout the day. Keep trying different stuff.
And
the time it's not even like 100% like push. It's kind of just like, let's just see what happens. Like if I put like a 10 in there instead of a 9.5 in the front, let's just see what it does. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and something that the announcers really don't talk about really at all is the fact that maybe 40 riders might show up to a qualifying event and like 28 make the grid, right?
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
There's a lot of people who put everything into it, and 12 professional riders who maybe are season-long pros or multi-year pros or not rookies are still not making the grid at a pro race.
Yeah.
So that tells you the level of skill and people who are coming to these events, and it's just cool to see that. But I wish they went into that a little bit more, not to embarrass the riders, but to show, like, look at how competitive this is.
Oh yeah, it's super close racing. It's probably the best racing I've ever done. Like CCS, it can be close, but it also feels super sketchy. Like, because I mean, those grids are based off of when you signed up. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I signed up when I got here. Yeah, you signed up 2 months ago, so you're on pole and you're running 4 seconds slower than everyone else. Like, so it's kind of cool that it's based off qualifying, but everyone's so tight. Like you could be like under 100th of a second from the guy to your left.
Yeah.
Like it's that close, and so it's really tight.
People are competitive but professional.
Yeah.
So you don't feel unsafe.
There's no dive bombs.
Yeah, you don't feel unsafe, which is phenomenal. And so that's what's really great about it too, is that so that's the whole escalation of it. You sort of, and that's with anything. So you sort of migrate to this channel where you have a hodgepodge of everyone in the bell curve in amateur racing, and you are bar banging, and it's downright, sometimes it's downright dangerous because there is such a gap or a disparity in skill set. And then the people that evolve or don't evolve, and they override the bike, and that's why there's a lot of crashes or common things like that. But then as you migrate up, you do have to, then it becomes, instead of using the big dial, you're using the tiny little gauge to adjust. So, and that's the big thing, right? So you just have to keep an open mind, I think, right? Think like a child.
Your big gross motorsport skills to your fine skills when you get better, and it sounds like you're everybody respects each other at the pro level. I don't know if there's too many people throwing fists and mad at each other in the pro paddock.
No, there's certainly incidents. There is definitely incidents of, I mean, when you're on the bike and you're racing, you get a little hot. Like, it happens. But usually once you're off the bike and you cool down, you're fine. But I mean, on track, there's still a little bit of drama there.
There's still people throwing up their hands like, "What are you doing? Get out of my way!" Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, stuff,
Yeah.
people still make mistakes, stuff still happens, and you still get a little feisty.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's interesting because there's folks that just haven't matured yet, is what it is, because they're not using all their brain to think. It's, you have to be calm and have fun, and if you're not having fun, don't do it, because then you're in a fight or flight mode if you're that panicked, because right, you just want to fight.
Yeah.
You're not, so you actually are limiting your ability to think. You can't process information anymore because you're screaming at someone.
Right.
So that's the crash issue. The dopamine's off and you're in that panic mode. So that's why the people are running into traffic. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then you still have you have children out there who are learning the ins and outs and becoming people and becoming established, riders, and who are still just barely teenagers, and they're competing out there, maybe not in the same class, but on the same track at the same event with people who are season-long pros, who are been overseas maybe, who are international racers, and up to 55 years old, I think, is the top age for the superbike class. I'm not sure if it's younger for other classes, but I'd like to see that age maybe extended, because I would love to see a moto senior class. We have a junior class. Why don't we have a senior class pros? I think that'd be cool. Say 55 to 100.
That'd be, I don't know.
Grandma has a fucking broken hip out there, and she's ripping that Harley.
Hey, they can piece it back together.
Yeah, you're not insurable. That's the problem. I mean, when you get to a certain age level, you have more assets, and to be quite frank, the insurance levels that you have to cover at those age levels. Like if you're 16, you don't have any assets, so there's really not an insurance issue. I mean, you get people in certain situations, and just to insure yourself in these things is literally tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. I went to the ARMA event at Daytona, and they got old men racing out there alongside young whippersnappers. So they also don't crash as easily. I noticed that a lot of the crashes at ARMA, I was like, man, another ambulance? Jeez, there's a lot of flashy buses that weekend.
If they're crashing, they're crashing. Like, they're making a show out of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of sleepers. A lot of people sleeping on the side of the track.
In which class were they crashing?
Is ARMA, the American Historical Rotor Racing Motor Association.
Yeah.
So vintage bikes, all kinds of vintage bikes out there, and they had. I mean, Heron was out there testing on his Ducati that weekend, and we had one electric bike, and just like the Formula One stuff, they were like, we didn't have the gloves, we didn't have the PPE to touch them, so they were like, do not touch the bike. If a bike goes down, just walk away. Don't even go near it. We don't know they didn't know all the safety protocols, so they had specific Daytona crew that would have that PPE and go out there and touch that bike. Luckily, it didn't go down, so we didn't have to worry about that. But they were really scared about, don't touch it, don't even look at that bike.
There's supposed to be a fat kill switch on it, but even if if it's a bad enough crash, it can still cause some surfaces to be hot on that thing. Which, I mean, the voltage,
or cause on fire, or
if that thing starts on fire, if a electric bike starts on fire, it's not going out. Doesn't matter how many fire trucks you get. Like, remember a couple years ago, the Moto E thing started up, and right before their season opener, the whole facility burned to the ground with all the bikes in it.
Yeah, I remember
overnight.
that. They lost their whole fleet of bikes, and they had to delay the series a couple rounds.
Yep. The whole thing burned down because of a short circuit in one of the bikes. Like, while it was charging overnight, it burned the whole thing to the ground, which makes me apprehensive towards them. Like, I don't want those in the garage,
But I'm sure that when other stuff came out, like the combustion engine, I'm sure they had tons of blow ups and rods through the cylinders and whatnot.
I'm sure. I mean, give it time. I don't want to be an early adopter putting one of those things in the garage.
Yeah. Well, I talked to actually one of the Moto E riders, Dominique Agater. He was on this podcast and he
That's
rode
cool.
those bikes and I went into, I'm sure it changes your braking zone a little bit because you don't have any gears to downshift. You're not
Yeah, but
engine
you
braking.
can, no, you can engine brake the shit out of it because you have an electric motor that you can put basically into reverse. And so you
Okay,
can
yeah.
get battery back and slow that wheel down without braking. Like,
Yeah. But
you
you're just
can-
not going to like a specific gear area.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not
just
like,
like
I'm this
slow
gear,
down.
second gear. Yeah, it's just slow down until you get in that zone. It's a little different
Yeah.
than, a CVT versus a 6 gear.
It is
bike.
weird. Yeah, because it's like, all right, I'm in second. I know I'm good to make this corner. You don't have
Yeah.
that. It's like, all right, I feel like I'm going the right speed to tip in.
Probably goes more by feel of your tires than the feel of your gearing.
Yeah. I wonder if you can hear, like, how much you can hear, because it's probably just as noisy, but different noises.
Probably hear your chain clanking all around.
Yeah, probably a lot of chain noise, which is probably a little like disconcerting. Because like
Yeah,
when we
it's-
had those DB killers in and you're leaned over on the side of the bike, you can hear the transmission, which is a weird noise to hear.
You're like,
when
is
you're
it
used to
broken?
it.
Do I have something going on down there? Is this
Yeah.
mechanical? Who knows?
Yeah, when you're used to some loud ass exhaust, you have the transmission whirring next to you. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Is
It's cool.
anyone making electric bikes anymore? I mean, a few of them,
Yeah.
are any of those companies around still?
There's one that's I know making, I don't know if they're necessarily race bikes, but they're road bikes.
Yeah, I'm
They're
not
supposed to
sure
be
of all the
super
different
bike style.
brands. We should try to find. I would love to see an E series in Moto America.
I don't know if they have the power grid for it at some of these tracks.
Yeah.
We get some of those Tesla power
Yeah,
packs.
yeah, just probably something like that, or just a lot of extension cords,
A huge, like a big Cummins generator.
massive extension cords. Yeah, there's a few of them, yeah, for street use, but I don't know if they'd be compatible for racing. It's interesting because I wonder if they would even be, with how fast you can charge them. If you have to have a separate battery pack or something like that,
Is it
I wonder-
Via Mota or Energica? I think might have
I
some.
don't know, yeah.
Zero, maybe.
Because
Yeah.
you have to run that bike for 30 minutes approximately,
Yeah.
and then like twice a day basically for a race. But like, what about a track day?
That'd be difficult. So I actually, on that note, I rented a car from a rental agency place, unnamed, I'll say, and I went to a racetrack and did a track day with it, track day
Sweet.
weekend, and it was an
Sweet.
awesome thing. But they had an option of a Tesla, a bunch of Teslas that I could have gotten. And I was like, man, I don't think there's a charging port there. I'm gonna be like 2 sessions in and be stranded at the racetrack now in turn 3. So I decided not against that. I went with a Chevy instead, and but it would have been cool just to see the Tesla on the racetrack and really rip that car, because I've been at Homestead, Miami, and one of the guys there had a Tesla. He's like, "You want to do a jump start with me, or what do you call it?
A drag
launch,
race?
a drag
Yeah,
race, a
Yeah.
launch." So he put it in this mode, in full throttle, and he just does electronics, and it kind of does it for him,
Whirs away.
And it's like 0 to 60 in a half a second. It feels like.
Yeah, they're
Nice.
super fast. They're super fast. I'm
I'd love
amazed
to
you got away
see-
with it. I'm amazed the fucking the rental company didn't hit you up. Because we were
So
talking about that in Atlanta, that they have GPS in those cars.
Mhm.
so this
like-
was one of those ones where it's a person rents their car.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So just a random person. And actually, I would highly recommend it because I got the premium insurance. The first time I did it, I tried to get like a Camaro. And
Yeah.
it said immediately as soon as I reserved it, sorry, it's not available. It needs more maintenance. So I got a $200 credit or something like that.
Mm.
And so I did it again with the BMW. Same thing happened. Another $200 credit. I'm like, this is great.
I'm just
So
making
then-
money.
The third
Making
time,
money.
there was no other cars, like sports cars available. So I went with a stock Chevy Malibu and
It's
completely
got a V8,
rode-
right?
No, nothing. And it was just a pretty slow street car with stock street tires on it. But hey, you take any vehicle to its limits. But by the end of the second day at lunchtime, I had to go home because the brakes were completely gone. Like we're talking, the corner worker said, "You need to check your brakes because we can hear you squealing the entire racetrack, whether you're not even on the brakes." And I couldn't brake anymore. I was just using engine braking on the street to get back to the house.
Some random guy's car.
This is entirely hypothetical. It's never happened, really.
Yeah,
Oh, of course.
Yeah, this didn't happen.
No.
But it was a fun time.
What would happen if you? Yeah, right. What would happen if this would have actually happened?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course. So it was a fun time, and I'd recommend it, man. There was at one point a Lotus behind me, Exige, and he was so low to the ground, I could barely see him in my rearview mirror. Like I could just barely see the tip of his wing, and so I had to use my side mirrors just to watch him. And then I was in front of him for this
in the Malibu.
In the Malibu. So like I went in novice because the car is not fast enough for advanced. You got real race cars in advanced here.
Yeah, like time attack cars, big aero, big shit going on, big power, and you got a Malibu.
I'm like 20 seconds off of my lap time in a motorcycle, you know. But it was so incredible to do that. It's like it was what was eye-opening for me, or ear-opening for me, is I couldn't hear my engine because it's a Malibu, but I could hear my tires screaming for bloody mercy around every turn, because they're not race tires, they're just street tires, so they're just squealing like crazy everywhere you go. And it was a semi-automatic, so I just have on my gear shift, I have a
little
plus
up,
up
down.
and a plus down. That doesn't do what I tell it to when I press the button. It waits a minute. If it thinks I'm too high in the RPMs, it'll wait like 3 seconds before it downshifts. And I'm like, I need this downshift. I need this engine braking to happen. I was expecting this. It didn't happen. Like, what the hell? So
What track was this at?
that was at
Homestead.
Grattan. That was my home
That's
track.
at Grattan. Okay, that's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. I'd recommend anybody to try it out.
Just not with your car, though, right?
You know,
Yeah. Get the
it's not with my
insurance.
car. Although I've taken my truck on the racetrack before. When it was snowing, I went to the track in like early April, May maybe, years ago, and it was fine here. It was supposed to be a motorcycle track day. And by the time I get to the track, it's a blizzard here in Michigan. And so we all took our trucks out, a few of us, and broke up the ice in the river in turn 1 and turn 6 before we rode out there with our motorcycles.
You couldn't pay me to go on a track with frozen water on it.
I'm not saying I went fast. I'm saying I went around the racetrack and putzed around, and I got to say I rode on a track that had snow on it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds
miserable.
So I
horrible.
went
So
up to
cold.
140 at one point, so I went pretty like 140 in the snow.
Sounds horrible.
Sounds horrible. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good time.
So cold. I can only imagine the hands.
Yeah, well, for that you have to wear like vinyl gloves underneath your gloves. It acts as a really good barrier for the cold. Do that all the
For the
time.
wind.
For the wind, yeah. That's the only way you can stay on the bike for more than like 10 minutes at a time.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Brutal. That is brutal. Get
But,
some heated grips
That'd be nice.
on your race bike.
I've always thought about those thermal gloves, but I always go back to like Final Destination. Like I don't want to get burned alive in that old movie where everything goes wrong.
I don't think I've seen one of the Final Destinations. I don't know if I've seen the one with the gloves. What happened? He burned, just lit on fire.
Yeah, just makes me think of that it might get burned up or something. But I'm sure they're fine.
Spontaneously combust.
But would you believe we're already over 2 hours?
I would.
Oh, there you go.
45.
That's cool.
Nice.
So we can wrap it up here. If you want to
Yeah,
give
cool.
some sponsor shout outs, you're more than welcome to.
But we shouted out Orient Express for that hookup
Yeah,
at
that's a big deal.
Road Atlanta. That was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, we have a few. There's Vortex, which has done a great job for us with sprockets, obviously. The Orient Express and K-Tech for suspension. Redline Moto, obviously, which does tire warmers, digital tire warmers, which is phenomenal. Lifespine's been a sponsor. And who else do we have in there? Oh, Aero Exhaust.
Aero.
Yeah, Aero.
Providing exhaust when I taco them.
Yeah.
A
There's a lot of cans. A lot of cans, yeah. And then Motul lubricants, which has been great. And then who else is there? There's 3D Chains, our favorite.
Yeah. And
Pretty chain,
Suomi
nice.
for keeping our heads safe.
Yeah, that's right. Suomi just popped in there too, which is great.
Those helmets are phenomenal.
Yeah,
Big fan of
super
those helmets,
lightweight.
actually.
Yeah, huge visor screens. Haven't used one of those since riding dirt bikes, 25 years ago, and they've obviously come a long way, which is phenomenal.
Very nice. Well, I also sell 35 brands of motorsports products. So if you guys need anything, I have many products available. So just hit me up. I have hard parts and the gear as well. So
Cool.
mostly do modified sport bikes, but I do a little bit of car parts and mountain bike parts as well.
Cool.
Mountain biking.
That's awesome.
So
Sweet.
I'll get this edited and posted. You guys are the very next one. Should be number 97. So I'll get that done in the next probably a couple of days here. And be
Cool,
sure
man.
to tag everybody and share as much as possible.
Perfect.
Awesome, man.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
All right. Well,
Everyone-
I'll see you at the next, not the next couple of rounds, but I should be at, I think, New Jersey and Pittsburgh and Barber for Moto America the rest of the
Barber.
season.
Sweet.
Cool.
I'm going to be doing some coaching rounds the next couple of weekends locally here. So I don't have to go out of state for a little while.
Excellent.
I
Cool.
do.
Thanks for coming on, guys. And
Thanks,
sure,
man.
I'll talk to you at the racetrack.
Thanks,
Yep, see you,
Eric.
man.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.